Hello girls, the purpose of this video is to build our understanding of the historical concept of reliability. Reliability refers to the idea that certain statements or information can be trusted for accuracy when we are investigating a particular question. Let's consider familiar sources in building our understanding of the concept of reliability. And let's consider the wording of this question here because it could well be echoed in your assessment task 3 in the exam block of term 4. How reliable is source A in providing information about the safety of testing at Maralinga? In your response, consider your background knowledge as well as source B. Let's restate the question to make sure that we understand it. How trustworthy, reliable, is the information provided in source A in answering the question about whether nuclear testing at Maralinga was safe? As the source captures Ernest Titterton's words, let's put the question still more simply. Can we trust Ernest Titterton to tell us the truth about the safety of nuclear testing at Maralinga in 1957? So when you're answering a question about reliability, you are deciding whether the source can be trusted as a source of information about a particular issue or in response to a particular question. Think about the context of the source. When did the speaker, for example, in the case of Ernest Titterton, when were they speaking and why were they speaking? Did they want to influence someone? Were they involved in a particular project? What was their purpose? What was their agenda? Agenda means purpose. What did they want to achieve? That is, when was the source produced? Why was it produced? And who was involved in the production of that source? With regards to source A, we know that it was produced in a context involving the cooperation of the Menzies-led government with the British government, Titterton's cooperation with Britain. He was an ambitious British citizen. Titterton's scientific ambitions, evidence of Titterton's involvement in the spread of misinformation about the effects of nuclear testing. Source B, for instance, it's the Frank Walker prologue, you're familiar with that, highlights Titterton's lack of honesty to the Australian people, presenting him as untrustworthy on issues to do with nuclear testing. So here you will be discussing both sources. Source B, as we've discussed a number of times, adds to our picture of Titterton's unreliability, and you're bringing in your background knowledge. So purpose of Titterton's words in source A? Who was he? So he was a scientist, a high-status employee of the Australian and British government who wanted to reassure the Australian people about the safety of nuclear testing. If people did not feel reassured, then there would be public protest and obstacles to the testing. So his scientific ambitions were very relevant to both himself as a scientist and also the two governments, the Australian government and the British government. Okay, so as I've said, the sources above are familiar because we're looking at the concept of reliability, and it's going to be a bit clearer for us, a bit more helpful if we look at the concept of reliability in relation to sources that we're familiar with. What you're going to do today, and you'll have 2 lessons to do it, you're going to apply your understanding of reliability to other sources. So how reliable are the following sources in providing information about the impact of nuclear testing at Maralinga on Aboriginal people of the area. And I've got the sources linked there. When answering a question about reliability, you are deciding whether the source can be trusted as a source of information on a particular issue or question. Think about context and purpose. So in relation to this question, the following questions may guide you. So we're just breaking that question down a bit, the big question, into little subsections. So whose perspective is presented in the sources? So colonial or governmental perspective, Aboriginal perspective. Okay, does it clash with other perspectives? So have a think about whether it is consistent with Ernest Titterton's perspective that no people were harmed during the testing, that the territories involved were unoccupied by Indigenous people. Okay, so does it clash with Ernest Titterton's perspective, for example? Is it consistent with the background knowledge that you have gained from other sources? So you know certain things now, girls. You've built up your field of knowledge. So that when you're analysing these two sources, does it match what you know? Does it corroborate what you know? Does the purpose of the source appear to be the presentation of information, accurate facts, or misinformation, lies? In relation to each of these sources, I've given you some information. So source A, Operation Buffalo and the Milpuddy family. It was produced by ABC Children's Television Message Stick. Aboriginal people were greatly involved in the production of this source. Source B, Maralinga Aftermath crater where 4 bodies were found. We've got the Australian War Memorial creating this source, and it's a source that is informed by a range of other sources. So they've done an investigation and brought material together. So just have a look at this and think in each case, girls, what is the purpose of each of those sources? So your task today and next lesson is to prepare notes that would help you to answer this question: how reliable are the following sources in providing information about the impact of nuclear testing at Maralinga on Aboriginal people of the area? So we could even change, we could put, how reliable are source A and source B in providing information about the impact of nuclear testing at Maralinga on Aboriginal people of the area? We've got source A, we've got source B. Your task is to prepare notes that would help you to answer the question in preparation for a later written response. So you'll have today's lesson, as I said, and a lesson next week. You're going to make notes about each of these sources, what you think is relevant to this idea of reliability and accuracy. Does it match your background knowledge? So one of the things you might do to just help build up your background knowledge is to revisit previous sources, such as that main video that I provided you with, and you can also find that on ClickView, and do some independent investigation. This is certainly relevant to your assessment task goals. So all the best.